So another challenge is, go out, build your network, reach out to people who might actually have the challenges you can help with, and convince them that you are the one to do it. Starting out is actually very challenging. I think I got myself very lucky for starting in such an organic way like I did. But I think these days it's actually more challenging than before to get the momentum going.
This is Fractional by Swarm. This is the podcast where we interview top fractional designers, engineers, makers, and builders. See how they carve their own path, build their side quests, and take on the passions in life. This is your gateway to living a successful fractional lifestyle. Sergio Pereira has been a software engineer and CTO for 13 years. He's built tech products for several fast-growing startups, such as Bulk MRO, StudentFinance and Candidly. For the last 7 years, Sergio has managed fully remote teams, either full-time or working as a fractional CTO. Sergio is also a public speaker on remote work and managing tech teams, having spoken at major tech conferences and being an instructor at O'Reilly, Udemy, and Gumroad. In this episode of Fractional, we talk about what it takes to be a fractional CTO, how Sergio navigates chaos while building diverse engineering teams, the benefits of being a content creator, and his view on how to get jobs as a fractional engineer. It's Alexis here, your co-founder from Swarm. Please enjoy the episode. Hey Sergio, welcome to Fractional.
Hello.
How are you?
Hello. Thanks for having me. I'm doing well. What about yourself?
I'm great. So Sergio, you're from Portugal and you've been a fractional CTO for a long time and have done multiple things. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Of course. I am based in sunny Portugal. What's interesting is that this is my home country, hometown. And there was a time I felt it was kind of a curse to be living in a country with kind of low wages and whatnot. So I dreamt very early on of having high paying jobs for foreign companies. Like I discovered remote, I guess, very early on. And for me, that was an opportunity. I guess fast forwarding to the fractional thing, I never actually woke up one day and said, you know what, I will work on this fractional capacity. I will work part-time for companies. Not really. I think it happened organically as I pursued the actual sort of vision I had for my own career, which was working remotely, being able to live in my home country while getting higher salaries from foreign clients. This was at a time when remote was not so popular as it is today. So there was a shortage of companies hiring people remotely for full-time positions. So before I actually got that, which I got later on, I started working on this sort of contract basis for foreign clients. So that's how I've started my fractional career. It was not so intentional. It was actually pretty organic. I was going through a startup accelerator program, and as a technical guy, I became sort of a go-to person for non-technical founders of other companies that started asking me for help with interviewing engineers or doing some integration or fixing a bug or all sorts of technical questions. I started helping them for free, kind of helping out the buddies, I guess. And then I started charging for it, and that's how it started, pretty organic. And in a way that I said to myself at a point, like, you know what? This might actually be a great place for me to actually live in Portugal while working for foreign clients, which was a nice way to start.
I see. And you've done like a lot of, companies. I'm looking at your LinkedIn and it's like 7 or 8 fractional on top of like other full-time workplaces. So tell me about what it takes to be a fractional CTO? Because I see a lot of it on your profile, right? Like, what does it even take for someone to do that?
Yeah, I don't think there's a universally truth answer to that. I think it really depends on the role and the client and everything. It's not as clear cut as full-time roles that have a job description, a salary range, and you apply if you fit those criteria, those skills, and everything in the job description. If you accept the salary, you're in. I think on these fractional roles is less clear the boundaries. So I think one thing that you absolutely must have is the skills and experience to help the client. I think it's important to understand, like, why would clients ask or hire a part-timer or a fractional instead of a full-timer? And sometimes it's because they don't have the budget for a full-timer, so they know exactly what they want, but they just can afford like part-time or 10 hours a week or something like that. Other times they have challenges, like they don't even know how much time it will take to sort them, or what exact skill set it does take to tackle them. So what they do is they seek people who have gone through it before. Like if I've just founded a startup, I got some early traction. My product first version was built by an outsourcing company, and at this point things are breaking. Clients are getting pissed. I get customer support tickets every day. Investors are nagging me, like, I invested in your company and now your product is down. So this kind of chaotic scenarios that are actually chaotic for a good reason is because there are clients paying, the company is actually growing, and things that worked in the past might no longer work to grow from there. They know the challenge they have, but they cannot really put these two words into a job description. They don't know if this is one person, one team. So I think for me as a fractional CTO, this is the most common kind of scenario. Is companies, or rather most of the times startup founders, come to me and say, look, I have this range of challenges. Someone told me, or I read, or whatever way I got to you, that you tackled this in the past, or you did this for other companies. I really need your help with this. Help me even frame, what an agreement would look like. And sometimes I help them break it into stages, or we make it sort of a project to go from 0 to 1 on that specific challenge. Other times I become sort of an advisor. Sometimes if I have more bandwidth and they have the budget, I do sort of a part-time and I will help them go through that phase within a few months. Sometimes I help them hire a full-time CTO, because sometimes that's what they need, but they don't even know how to hire a full-time CTO. So the range of challenges is quite broad, and the conjunction of those challenges definitely changes depending on the company, the stage, the budget, the existing team. So if you ask, like, what does it take to be a fractional, it does definitely take the ability to solve these challenges for clients that you must have.
You have to solve problems for your clients and whatever chaos they're currently in. Sergio, I wanted to ask you, what kind of chaos do you prefer? Like, at what stage do you usually thrive in?
I like, so there are different types of chaos. First of all, I like the chaos when things are growing. There are burning needs to build stuff, to hire teams, but I kind of have a lot of ownership, because it's like it doesn't exist and we need the thing to exist, either a team or a product or whatever. So I like this more blue ocean kind of chaos, because I can come in and really quick build whatever needs to be built, and I tend to be really quick at that, and I've done it a few times in the past, so I can definitely help with that. There are other types of chaos that I obviously work with as well. They are not so exciting sometimes, which is most often like change, adjust course. Like, for instance, I have this team that is not working out. Like, I need you to change it around. Either, fire this team and hire another team and ramp them up, or transition, or, find out what is wrong with this team.
That's really
or
hard.
maybe the product is broken. Like, the team is working hard and everything is good, but like the product is constantly broken and I don't know why. That type of chaos is, I guess, a bit more demanding, because it requires more investigation. And many times it is more dense in terms of human, like people management, human connections, which, I mean, people have feelings, have egos and all that. So changing course when that affects people can be sometimes more challenging than a blue ocean type of scenario. In any case, I think we get used to all of them, and all of them are fun in their own way, and we do whatever clients need, right?
Yeah, that's for sure. And I just had a thought that it's actually, I feel like it's much harder to, enact change and the latter type of scenario you told me. Like, although you do have the ownership, the relationships part are very hard to contend with.
It's actually a very fun type of scope of work to kind of tell the story in retrospective after the fact, because when I get to start working, it's like, okay, where do I even start? Like, sometimes I need to find out like what is the issue, and sometimes the issue is, specific people in the team are not performing, or decisions were wrongly done in the past, and something in the product needs to change. Sometimes quite dramatic change, that is, I think, the tough part. But after that, after we actually get over the hump, things is whatever the challenging thing is done, it's actually pretty fun to say, oh, we went through it. It's pretty nice. We did it.
Reflecting on, the wins
Exactly.
and going over the challenges, always a great part of the journey. So, Sergio, tell me about how you build teams, like as a fractional CTO, because that's always been interesting to me.
I would say there are three different ways to build a team, and I do it depending on what clients need. Some clients need like a quick solution because they have short budget. They think of it as a short project that is exactly the length of their runway. Like, I have 6 months runway, so I need a team to build whatever I need built over the next 6 months, and that's it. Because longer than that I cannot pay them at all, so that's it. So in that kind of scenario, we need to hire either freelancers or a developing agency, some short thing that can get the job done, and then people are gone, because that's how it is. That definitely poses challenges after the fact. Like, if things actually go well, like, people are gone. Like, that's not ideal, obviously, but well, startup conditions are never really ideal. So there are a lot of constraints usually. So that is in that case, like, when companies are like post product market fit, and they have budget either from revenue or from investors or both, they typically want to grow an established team. Like, they want to hire full-timers, they want people who are excited to stick around for few years or something like that. They have equity to give them as well, so it's a longer term thing. So I kind of help companies first of all decide what is the conjunction of like a team they need, the profiles, the kind of contracts, budgets, etc. And then I help them hire and onboard. How I do it, I think one thing that has historically been very different from, I guess, most other people, is that I started hiring remote very early in my career. Remote, I mean not just letting people work from home in my city, but actually tapping big talent pools across the world, like hiring people in Eastern Europe, in India, in Africa, Latin America. I started very early in my career to develop a sort of a sense of what are people good at in different places, what are the upsides, downsides, how to mitigate this whole time zone difference. Because if I hire someone in India for a company in the US, there are obviously challenges with the time zones. So this applies for full-timers and also for contractors and even agencies. Like people are physically located somewhere on Earth, and we need to plan the work accordingly to make things work. And there are trade-offs, like American clients that want to hire a team in the US obviously comes with a trade-off that is more expensive there typically. I say I really enjoy hiring people for my clients, and I like hiring around the world. That's pretty much what I did since the early days. Now it's, I guess, more popular than before. There's more people around the world wanting to be hired by American, British, etc. clients, and those clients are also more open than before to hire overseas talent, which I find amazing. So I do it.
You talked about developing a sense for which countries or areas are good at what, right? I'm actually pretty curious about that.
Yeah, so I think it's interesting. But after interviewing hundreds, probably more than 1,000 software engineers over the past few years, a few things stand out. Like, for example, if I need to hire, let's say, a PHP person, Eastern Europe is the place to go, because why does that happen? Because that talent pool grew a lot at a time where there was high demand for that particular stack. So there are people there really good at that. So I usually go for that. Conversely, if I need probably like a mid-level like JavaScript person, I'll go for Nigeria. Because, why is that? Because Andela, the first coding school that kind of made African talent explode first with Lagos in Nigeria. They taught people on Node.js, React.js. So those people are now around probably like 5 years of work experience, mostly for American startups. So they are very strong for that profile, but they are not so strong for pretty much any other profile, which I find quite interesting. Like if I need people, let's say, I'm being a bit stereotypical here, but actually these are factual observations.
It's from your journey.
So it's like my gut feeling where I go for, like, for example, LATAM, especially Brazil. Like if I need backend engineers, regardless of the stack, that have at use cases managing large volumes of data, Brazil is definitely the place to go. Why is that? Because there is a big diversity of tech stacks. It's just a country that has a very rich software development talent pool, and it happens that Brazil is damn big as a country, and many companies there work for the internal market. But the internal market is actually very big. So like an e-commerce website in Brazil that serves Brazil is actually a large pool of data. So backend engineers there have, historically been really good at, things that touch almost data engineering. So whenever I need that, I go for that. So it's interesting, like how things developed. Also challenges. For example, if I hire in Brazil, I know a common challenge is English level. Like many people there are really good engineers, but given how big the market is, many people have not been incentivized historically to learn English to a professional level. So some people have challenges with that. So I find it interesting to combine all these, challenges, but also different people's strengths in a team.
How do you manage that, mix of culture, communication challenges, and just, relationship dynamics within a team? If, you're building a very diverse team?
So first of all, like people are different. Even working in an office in any city that has high diversity, like cities in the US, major cities in Europe, odds are that even if you are in the office, there will be people from different places in the world. So the kind of same sort of constraints apply. I think in fully remote, it's I would say not a step towards the challenge, because people are actually not living in English speaking countries, and they are in their own local culture. So I think they don't live in a shared culture like they would if they were all in the office in let's say in London or in New York or whatever. So how do I tackle that? Like, first of all, there's just the normal dynamics of a team. Like, people respect each other. We have usually my teams. I have a no tolerance policy for disrespect, whatever it is. So just embracing difference as a cornerstone of the culture. And I think that's important. Like, people are open-minded to work with people different from them, and I think that's pretty good as a baseline. Then in terms of processes, like I like to be strong on written communication for a bunch of different reasons. One is because people are not around at the same time. If I have people in Europe, in India, and in the Americas, odds are they are not all working at the same time, all hours in the day. So, it's good for the guy in the US to have written down, to have the stuff written down from the guy in India that has already gone to sleep. So, writing also dismisses some, challenges with English language. Like, people, write, and they can have all sorts of Grammarly type of help to help them write better. We can post comments and all that. So written communication is good because it helps us have a shared status of work that we can refer to. It also helps us be in different time zones, because if we are not around at the same time, well, if knowledge is written down, that's actually not a problem. So that helped me a lot, not just for the communication per se, but also to foster processes that embrace people in different parts of the world.
I'd say that's really inclusive, and props to you. And I appreciate you sharing this out in the wild too. I know you've been very generous with, sharing resources around working remotely, and you created this website and resource, and actually, very big side project, right? Like Remote Work Academy. Well, what's that all about?
Yeah. One thing that happened to me is that during lockdowns, a lot of friends and former colleagues of mine suddenly were in the office, and one day they were in the office, and suddenly the next day they were working from home. And this was all pretty new to them. So a lot of people reached out to me like, hey, this crazy thing you did of working from home for a front company, you know what? It's actually happening to me now that everyone is in lockdowns working from home. So maybe you have some tips for me. Some people were asking this just out of dynamics, like, how can I even build a home office? Like, I have my kids home and I cannot work, it's noisy. Like, practical advice of just setting themselves up. Others were asking more process-sided kind of things, like, man, I came home, but we are in meetings all the time. I actually do the work at night. It's worse than in the office. Like, I cannot do this. It's crazy. So I help them with more like process kind of things. And other people, I would say more entrepreneurial minded, were like, what? I'm in Lisbon working from home for a company in Lisbon. What if I work from home for a company in London or in the US, like in New York or something? Like, I can earn 5x more. So these people actually saw the potential financial upside of this circumstance. So in that case, I help those people, how to apply to remote companies, in different countries, how to interview, how to work for them, like the questions you asked before about time zones and all that, for the ones who did it for the US. Also, to kind of my sort of disappointment, or maybe I had too high expectations. When some of these people, like their companies, as they got back to the office, some of these people actually, went back to the office, and they continued complaining about going to the office and the commute and all that, but they were like, okay, we're back to what we had before. It sucks, and you know what, but. And I was like, man, dude, there's better. Like, why are you settling for that? Like, you experienced you experienced the better life already, and it was obviously not great because it was during a pandemic and it was, kids running around at home. It was definitely not ideal by any means. So, but you experienced that. Like, now imagine that, working for a foreign company, earning more and all that. And some people, I guess, are just not so willing to take risks, or they perceive as risks, certainly more inflated than my perception. So that's when I took all this knowledge and said, you know what, if people around me are just settling for the office, or some of them I help them and they are actually better, but others just don't want to do it, there's probably like thousands of people out there in the world who could actually use this kind of knowledge that I have. And looking at sort of macroeconomic and actually social change, like I think remote work will just continue growing as companies understand that they can hire people around the world. They can have some economies with that, or just tap into talent pools they don't have locally. The whole concept of putting knowledge workers in offices, I think, will change dramatically. I'm not saying it's going to disappear, because it works for many people, but I think many companies will see the upside of doing different. Also, these massive amounts of talent in countries that don't have much local opportunity, let's say, as we mentioned, Latam, Africa, India, many other parts of Asia, even like Europe, like Southern Europe, like I'm in Portugal, local market is not so exciting compared to the US or to the UK. So that's where I decided to put all this knowledge in a remote work academy. I would say it's not super structured of a side project. Frankly, I don't have like a huge game plan. I use a bit my content on Twitter and people's reactions, questions, DMs to understand like what could I actually do? How could I package my knowledge in a way that is, actually helpful for people? So I've been doing courses, I've been writing a lot of content. I'm gonna launch a community soon for people applying to remote jobs. And frankly, I have no idea how it will go from there. I have a lot of interest from actual people seeking advice about going fractional. So I might actually do something about that as well. But frankly, I don't know. It's not something that I did for, the financial returns. Is more just a way to get my content, my knowledge out there in a way that people can consume and actually do something useful with it.
Actually, Sergio, I just want to, thank you for all of your, for having your giver mindset. I think, even the free content is plenty helpful already. Yeah, like, that's so great of you.
Thank you.
And I actually want to ask you about that, because you're a content creator too, and you do talk sometimes, and you write a lot. On top of, being a CTO, what's that like? And why do you do it?
It's not straightforward, because I don't think writing, in public is something that we do for purely rational reasons, because I could invest that time working for clients. I would earn more. It's like, why am I doing that? It's like time that I use for distributing stuff for free. The reason I did it is I used to speak at events, as you said in the beginning. Like there was a time I've actually challenged myself to speak at events because I come from being a very introverted, shy person. So I challenged myself to speak at local meetups, and then I went to small tech conferences, and ultimately I got some big stages at some tech conferences, which was pretty daunting but very exciting, and also the reception, like. People talking with me and people messaging me that they had actually got useful action items from my content or whatever, actually empowered me to do it more. And with the lockdowns, that stopped. Like, events kind of come to a halt, and there were no more speaking engagements. Also, I had my second kid getting born right after, so I couldn't actually be, traveling so much and all that. So I started thinking, like, how can I put all these, willingness to share stuff in a purely digital form. So I started doing it on Twitter. My goal was just one. It was just to gain momentum, to actually just share stuff, meet people, and hopefully do stuff that is useful. And what happens is actually pretty surprising. I didn't expect. Like, I learn a lot by doing it. Like, I learn a lot about my knowledge. I structure my thoughts. I do further research. So sometimes I'm writing stuff and I go like, let me just see how other companies are doing this. And so I learn a lot just by sharing my knowledge. And also I meet people who ask me further questions. So I learn even more, because if people ask me questions, sometimes are angles that I hadn't just thought of, like, interesting take. Or some people say things like, oh, I tried exactly what you said. Sounds really good. I love it. But I tried in my company, it didn't work for reasons A, B, and C. And I go like, interesting. Let me actually ask a bunch of questions to this person. I'm learning a lot from these. So, I at this point is something that I want really to continue, because I'm actually learning a lot, even not counting on the monetization angles or anything. Just from the learning perspective and the meeting new people perspective, I think it's quite amazing, the momentum that I created for myself. I'm pretty proud of it.
Yeah, I'm very proud of you too. I mean, I wouldn't have reached out to you if
Exactly, you
real.
would have never known me if it wasn't for that. And the same I could say for several other people that I built relationships with. I mean, they wouldn't ever know me, and vice versa, without speaking in public. It's actually interesting, the people I met just by being around, because I'm on Twitter every day. People comment on my stuff. They write their own stuff. I comment on their stuff. So relationships get built with this. So this means for me a bunch of things beyond just the social aspect and the learning aspect. Like, I get clients from Twitter every other week. And it's interesting. Like, I used to go out and talk with my network, with the agencies or whatever, to get fractional CTO engagements. Now I get people to talk with me on Twitter, and hire me from there. I'm hired by companies where in the calls with them, I don't even introduce myself. This is like incredible. Like, I would have never really thought about selling my services, my knowledge, without even introducing myself. Because they have been following me for a while, so they feel they know me already. They just need to pitch me their problems and ask me to help them solve. So that is amazing. Just from a business perspective, is a side effect that I love. And also, like, now I have this growing mass of people asking me questions, wanting help. So at some point I feel a little bit pressured even to throw out courses or content or materials in any way that can help them, because I'm creating expectations just by saying it's possible. That is, I guess, a bit of responsibility on me as well.
Thank you so much for sharing your story, Sergio. I actually have just one last question for you before we wrap up. And maybe for people who are just starting to move into the fractional lifestyle, and I'm sure you've already created a ton of resources for it. But what's your advice for all the fractional workers out there?
Fractional work has become very popular. It seems now many people work full time, would rather work part time, even at a fraction of the salary, which is very interesting. I felt it too myself. So other people are, I guess, going through that awareness curve where they realize, oh, is this a thing? Is this possible? I might actually like this. So the market is now kind of inundated with people who are curious about it and potentially thinking of teaching their full-time job for a fractional role. Also, a lot of people have been laid off recently. So a lot of these people might actually find themselves in a position of, I don't have much to lose because I've just lost my job. Maybe I have some savings. Well, let me just try this fractional thing for a while. So I think one advice for fractional workers is there are a lot of people in the market wanting these positions. So I think it's time to differentiate in some way, to build, direct relationships with clients, because agencies and other marketplaces are inundated at this point. So it's more challenging than before to actually find clients. Also on the topic of finding direct relationships with clients, it's definitely more challenging than a full-time. Like full-time jobs are listed in job boards, so it's actually pretty easy to find those opportunities. Fractional roles are not. Some fractional job boards start to appear here and there, but I think it's very early days. So another challenge is, go out, build your network, reach out to people who might actually have the challenges you can help with, and convince them that you are the one to do it. Starting out is actually very challenging. I think I got myself very lucky for starting in such an organic way like I did. But I think these days it's actually more challenging than before to get the momentum going to start a fractional career. Anyway, good luck.
Thank you so much, Sergio. I think that was wonderful advice, and that has been Fractional. Bye, Sergio.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Bye.